Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. On today's show we have a full one, we have a lot of news coming out for you. We have INEOS wanting an elite top level manager in the summer. The briefs are coming out into the press that they will go for the best of the best. Now what does that mean? There's more rumours around Thomas Tuchel leading that race. I'm going to break down a little bit of the pros and cons of Thomas Tuchel and have my honest opinion in that he would not be anywhere near the top of my list. I wouldn't sit here and cry about it, but it wouldn't be a name that I'd be going for, and I'll explain why, and let me know what your thoughts and feelings are on it as well. Also, a big decision looming over Jason Wilcox and his future at the club, coming out from the ESPN that there's scrutiny on Jason Wilcox and his future moving forward, and that coupling with Ben Jacobs on the show earlier this week saying there's going to be a thorough review of the whole hierarchy and the whole process at Manchester United. Who knows what's going to happen there, especially if they're looking for a name like Tuchel, because Tuchel's going to come in and he's going to want a lot of control, which we know there has been a little bit of a power battle there between Jason Wilcox, the hierarchy, and the manager. Also some quotes on Neville about Michael Carrick becoming permanent manager and also his choice for a permanent manager in the summer. He's talking about Ancelotti, he's talking about Pochettino. What do you think about that? Also as well, some more news coming in about the January transfer window. Ratcliffe is lowering his asking price for Nice. He's got that on the market and he wants to sell up. And also a little bit about more stuff in January and Toby Collier coming back into the mix as well, what his future is at Manchester United. But look everyone, thank you very, very much for getting your comments in already. Smash a like on the video, get your super chats in. Let's talk all things Manchester United. I was off yesterday and I've not been logged into any social media for like 24 hours. Wow, breaking news off social media for 24 hours. Who can believe it? So I'm excited to get into everything this afternoon. So starting off, INEOS targeting elite high caliber level managers in the summer. Right, so I saw this originally from IndyCarler on X, and I know Goldbridge takes the mick out of IndyCarler a little bit, and I'm not coming out here and saying he's David Ornstein or Fabrizio Romano, but he has got quite a few things right. Yes, it might be just, complete stabs in the dark and you say so many things that something's bound to come true in the future and you quote tweet and you're saying, look, I said this a few months ago. But then if you actually went back, there's like loads of other different stories that also said that haven't come true. Could be one of them things, but he puts out INEOS are going for elite, top level caliber managers. Take that with a little pinch of salt. I really would. But then it starts coming out from the ESPN. You've got Mark Ogden, you've got Rob Dawson, and this is what they were saying. They were saying that Thomas Tuchel is the standout candidate for Manchester United and ticks almost every box. He's managed elite clubs, won major trophies, including the Champions League, and has Premier League experience. And we know Premier League experience is absolutely key. Ben Jacobs said that is the pool of managers they're looking at. They want Premier League experience in a manager. So he ticks that box. And he's expected to be available this summer once his England contract expires at the end of the World Cup. Keep that in mind. However, there is a major concern internally. Tuchel is known for being demanding and abrasive, traits which clash with INEOS's vision of a more collegiate head coach model. United wants a manager who will work in tandem with figures such as Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada, rather than to dominate the structure. As a result, United face a choice: either adapt their blueprint to accommodate Tuchel's personality or look elsewhere to find a different sort of figure that would work within their regime. Other candidates mentioned include Maurizio Pochettino, who has a similar profile but is considered more diplomatic, Ipswich manager and former United head coach former United coach Kieran McKenna, and Crystal Palace's Oliver Glasner. They are admired internally but are seen as lower profile options. So that's what's coming around about Thomas Tuchel right now. And, Fabrizio Romano, I think, was saying last night that the names that keep coming out when it comes to INEOS and looking for a manager or head coach, whichever way United want to label it up, come the summer, is Thomas Tuchel and De Zerbi. We know that Thomas Tuchel and De Zerbi were both spoken to in great detail when there was that period that INEOS were kind of running around looking for a new manager. Ten Hag was kind of in the dark, and then they decided to keep Ten Hag on. And, we backed Ten Hag in the summer, and then we ended up sacking him when he was, I think, 4 or 5 points off top four in that October period when he got sacked after that West Ham result. I still remember it now. Pivoted to Rúben Amorim, and, the story goes on. But Thomas Tuchel is definitely a name that's been circulating within INEOS for a long time. De Zerbi's another one. Maurizio Pochettino keeps coming up. Gary Neville's talking about Ancelotti. I'm going to talk about all these different figures in a minute. Of course, right now, the main objective is for Carrick to do as much as he can to get Champions League football back to Manchester United. I think it's good. Yeah, I think it's a very, very, very tough job with the amount of points we've dropped. If you ask me, just before Christmas, can this Manchester United side get Champions League football? I would say yes. I think our squad, if it's played to the best of its ability and it's got confidence and it's being managed properly, could have got Champions League football with the fixtures that we had. However, injuries, AFCON, dropping many points against teams we should be beating. Everton at Old Trafford, West Ham at Old Trafford, Bournemouth at Old Trafford, Wolves at Old Trafford. Like, dropping that many points against teams where you look at and you say, that's 3 points, that's 3 points, that's 3 points. And then you go into a fixture run where you've got Man City, you've got Arsenal, you've got other difficult fixtures coming up. I think it's a really, really tough job for Carrick to go out and get Champions League football. However, it is still there. It is still there. So the main thing is backing Carrick, and we've got more news coming out on Carrick at the moment as well that we're going to get into. But looking ahead, I think there's so much discourse in the United fan base, and I often hear, within this community, on social media, when I'm watching Manchester United content, oh, well, we don't need to worry about the manager, the permanent managers in the summer. It's let's talk about the ownership, let's talk about the board, let's talk about Michael Carrick. And it's like, yes, absolutely need to have conversations about the way this football club is running, how the owner's running this football club, talk about, stuff that the 1958 is putting out there for protest. Completely get that, and we will talk about this in this community. And I think it's really important for fans to use their voices and be heard, because I completely am on the same page in the fact that, to be honest, over recent years, it's not really mattered who the manager has been. Of course, it definitely has an impact, and I think we've hired wrong, and I think we've fired wrong as well. I think we've hired and fired it at the wrong points, and we've not gone through a thorough process when it comes to hiring of getting the right person in. But I also think, any elite manager is going to struggle under the ownership that we have had. And we all thought that was going to change under INEOS and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and it doesn't seem to be the case. On paper, we've actually, gone down, and I'm hoping that's going to turn around, but there's been some seriously bad decisions and really bad judgment calls that has put us in a very difficult place. I mean, the fact we're going to play 40 games for the first time since 1915 or whatever, that is damning. And they all need to take a very long, hard look at how that structure is working and change things, which I will get onto at the end of the show. But that doesn't mean we just completely ignore the permanent manager conversation. The permanent manager or the head coach of any football club, whether it's Manchester United where you might be being crippled, or Man City where, the owners and hierarchy will give you anything you want. You want a centre-back in January, let's go and look at Mark Guéhi. You're struggling this January, let's go and spend hundreds of millions in getting Cousinov, getting Marmoush. They'll do that at City. Whatever Pep wants, they'll try and do it. It's very different circumstances, but no matter what club you're at, the manager is very, very important. And this manager for Manchester United in the summer is going to be crucially important. We are in one of our worst ever spots we've ever been in. And I'm not saying a top manager will change everything, because I think there's multiple things that need to change within the football club, and I stand by that. But it absolutely makes an impact. You've got to hire correctly. And this is going to be a big swinging doors moment for Manchester United Football Club, because we have made mistake after mistake after mistake. And this manager in the summer is going to be so important going into next season, because Manchester United can't afford to keep going on the way they're doing. We have to start climbing back up. And many things have to change to do so, but getting the right manager in is super important. And the names that are being listed don't really get me off my seat. There's not a single manager, to be honest, at this moment in time where I look and I think, he's the one I want, absolutely all in on that. I remember, and people can laugh at this now, but when we were linked to either Ten Hag or Pochettino, I massively wanted Ten Hag. I think I was the first one on the United stand to say I wanted Ten Hag, and people say, oh, look, she wanted Ten Hag. But, in hindsight, Ten Hag has won us 2 trophies in a massive trophy drought of this football club. He didn't end up being good enough. He couldn't get the league up to the right point, and his recruitment was absolutely diabolical. Not only his fault, I think we didn't get the right people in at the time to help him in that aspect, because it was a big flaw of his, the talent ID and the recruitment. But I remember I really wanted Ten Hag. I thought he was going to bring that style of football that he did at Ajax to the Premier League with Manchester United. I thought he was a really good coach within Europe. I thought what he did with the Ajax side was brilliant, but it didn't work out. I remember really wanting him at the time, especially when it was between Ten Hag and Pochettino. Right now, because we've been through so many manager cycles and we've tried every different style of manager, I'm literally sat here like I couldn't pick, because every single manager I can see positives, but I can also see it failing because of the way that we've been run and the decisions that have been made. When we've hired managers in the past, we have not hired the right people behind the scenes to complement that manager. We've never got the alignment right. And we have to do that in this summer. We have to. We've not only got to get the manager appointment right, we have to get the people behind that manager right. For example, if you were to go and get a Thomas Tuchel, which, like I said, would not be a choice of mine, but if you were to go and get him, you can't go and get Thomas Tuchel and ask him to work with Wilcox in the same relationship that Wilcox was trying to have with Amorim. It's not going to work. Thomas Tuchel is not going to abide by what Jason Wilcox says when you look at his CV, what he's done and his background. He wants full control. So it's like when we brought Ten Hag in, you know, John Murtough was running around just kind of going, getting Ten Hag wanted. I'd be there trying to get it, but then he'd come up with option C and it just didn't work. You needed Ten Hag completely away from recruitment and a specialised director of football going getting players that suited exactly the way he wanted to play. Ten Hag was like, I don't want him. Well, you're having him because this is the model and we can see what you're doing, but your recruitment, let us do that. You can coach these players and have it like that. I think we've just not got the combination right at all over the years, and it's something that is going to be absolutely huge for this summer. But anyway, get your super chats in. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're feeling. I've got so much to bring into the show. More about Tuchel, more about Pochettino, more about Ancelotti that Gary Neville has been saying as well, and I'm going to talk through it a little bit. Brian and stuff says, no saying transfers, ego-driven board dictates formation. You think any top guy will come near this dumpster fire and answer Wilcox nonsense? Well, I want to get in about Wilcox as well. We have got Gav as well saying, hi Beth, who do you believe we need to sign to get us in contention for Champions League spots? It's difficult. I said on the fans forum last week, and I don't think people want to hear it. I know Conor Gallagher is now gone to Spurs, but signing Conor Gallagher wasn't going to get us out the mess that we're in this January. Rúben Neves would be a great addition, but it's no guarantees. This squad needs a lot of investment and a lot of help, and you're not going to be able to solve it in one January transfer window. You can have a crack at it. And you can go and try and get someone in to just push us over that line. And I think Rúben Neves would absolutely be a great addition to try and do that in the midfield. But, you know, I think we need one or two midfielders. We need a left back. You need probably an experienced striker to complement Benjamin Sesko. Probably do need a left winger. I mean, we need a lot. For now, when there's not much on the market, you don't want to panic buy and bring anyone in that in a year's time you're going to be sat here like, kind of wish we didn't go for him, because now he's just sat, you know, in the squad and he's not really starting 11 quality and we just kind of rushed into it in January. You want to get targets for the long term that are going to be in your starting 11. For example, Semenyo, absolutely fantastic signing for Man City. I'm jealous. If we would have bought him, that would have been a brilliant signing for us. Absolutely brilliant signing for us. It would have gone on the left wing. It would be still starting in a year's time. Absolute elite calibre player that will come into your starting 11. For United now, I know people are crying out for business in January, but if you're crying out for business in January, please put a comment in and tell me, who is it that United should sign? And don't get me wrong, I think United should be active, and I think we should be looking at deals we can go and get. For example, when we signed Aidan Heaven, what a coup that was for the price and what he's brought to this team and the depth that he's brought to this team. And I do think, you know, it's not our jobs to be scouts. You know, if other clubs can go and find these hidden gems and bring them into their clubs and get them going, why can't Manchester United do that? So it would be up to the scouts and the recruitment department to find these gems and bring them in and help us till the end of the season. However, if you're just asking me now what players go and help us get Champions League football that are available on the market, it's really, really tough. The only one you could really pinpoint for the midfield would be Rúben Neves. That springs to mind. There's probably more options out there, but that's for the recruitment department to do. So I don't think we will sign anyone, to be honest with you, especially considering that we've got a interim manager in Michael Carrick. I think they'll wait for the new manager in the summer. And then if you do go and get a Thomas Tuchel, Is it the World Cup until July? So, and depending on how far England get, it could be late July. So how does the recruitment work there? How does the summer work there? How do the transfers work there? Honestly, it just feels like the plan is completely up in the air at the moment. And then just kind of on the transfers as well, this was what was coming out from the MEN. Manchester United are not expected to deviate from their January transfer window strategy following the appointment of Michael Carrick as interim head coach. According to Stephen Ralston, United are unlikely to make any signings this month and will stick to their original plan. So, doesn't look like anything's going to come in for Manchester United. It really, if the MEN are reporting that, it's really unlikely that we will go and get anyone. I think the news coming out about a left winger this morning is just United trying to kind of fob people off and be like, oh, we might sign someone. Window closes. Oh, but there wasn't anyone that fit the level of profile and talent that we want to bring in. Sorry, everyone. So you might hear news about how we're looking at a left winger because we didn't get Semenya. You might hear about the fact we're looking at Rúben Neves, we're looking at João Gomez. Highly doubt United will make the move. I highly doubt it. And I've just seen someone put in the comments there saying João Gomez. João Gomez, I forgot about him. He would be a great option. He would be a great option. I'm still not 100% sold though. I really like him as a player. For me, he's just an upgrade on Ugarte. He's an Ugarte type profile, but I think he's better. Will he be in the starting 11 in a year's time if we're where we want to be? No, I don't think he would be. But I definitely think he'd be a great squad player to have. He's an upgrade on what Ugarte would be in the squad. He would be someone to go, if we're in European football, he would definitely play games. He would definitely be an upgrade on Ugarte. But if I'm looking at Manchester United starting 11 next year and I'm looking at a double pivot, one name's Elliot Anderson and another name is one of the other elite level midfielders that we're linked to, whether that is a Stiller, a Baleba, a Mainu. If Mainu continues to, get game time and gets back to the way he was playing and fulfills that potential that we think he's got, you could see this time next year a midfield pivot of Anderson and Mainu, which I think could work really well together. So, João Gomez for me, yeah, it would be a welcomed addition, but it's not going to be an absolute mind blower, is it? It's not going to be one where he comes in and it's like, wow, you've revolutionised our team. But it would absolutely add depth into the midfield. Thank you very much, everyone, for getting your comments in. I want to talk, because Super Chat, coming back to that Super Chat that came in from Brian and stuff, saying that, do you think a top guy will come near this dumpster fire and answer to nonsense? Well, I wanted to get this in that was coming out from the ESPN about Wilcox being under scrutiny. So this is what Rob Dawson was reporting. He said that Jason Wilcox's role as director of football is now under scrutiny following Rúben Amorim's dismissal. Many United supporters believe Wilcox is too heavily involved in coaching decisions and now holds significant influence over major football calls at Old Trafford. Trust among fans is currently low, and it is believed that confidence in Wilcox will only be rebuilt if Michael Carrick performs well over the next 4.5 months and if the upcoming managerial search is handled smoothly and competently. And the concerns are absolutely right. When you have that title of director of football, there is going to be criticism when multiple mistakes have been made and mishandled. I mean, you cannot bring in a name like Tuchel, which again wouldn't be my name. You cannot bring in a name like Ancelotti and say, so you'll be answering to Jason Wilcox, lads. Like, you're just not going to be able to say that. You're just not. You need the right structure behind them sorts of managers. So at the moment, for me, it's a big conflict of what we're hearing in the news. It's a huge conflict because on one hand, it's been briefed that United want to keep their structure, they want their manager to be a head coach, and they want to keep the structure of the director of football. You have Omar Barada, you have Neville, and they want it to be a process where it goes from top to bottom, and it's a collaborative process. But director of football, Jason Wilcox, is very much still involved. Neville is very much involved, Barada is very much involved, and I do think there should be some involvement and leadership from the above, absolutely. But at the moment, it's very much involved. And it's a head coach and a manager isn't able to have total control of a project. So the brief is United want to keep that model, which hasn't been working since they structured it in Manchester United. The proof is in the pudding. I mean, in the league, we are doing terribly. We're out of every cup competition. We're at one of our lowest points. So it hasn't been working. But they want to keep that head coach model. And yet, there's other briefs coming out into the media that Manchester United want to go for the elitist of managers, top-level managers, big names, pedigree. How does that combination work together? Of course, you can have an ownership and a leadership team that is involved. I think that's good. And you know, you don't want a manager just to be fully left to his own devices with no backing and no help. You want a leadership team involved. You want them to be there in and around it and looking at what's going on. But there's a level to the game, and it's getting the right combination right. If you really want to go for an elite level manager with pedigree, which is exactly the type of manager United should be going for, by the way, in my opinion, we have to go and get someone who brings aura, who brings pedigree, who can say, this is my CV, listen to me, I know what I'm doing, I'm not going to succumb to any pressure, I'm here to take control and I'm here to build this football club back up, and I've got the CV to prove it, so everyone listen. If you get a manager in like that, you need to back them with a leadership team behind the scenes that listens to them, respects their CV, and is on the same page as them and works and is involved in helping their idea come to life. Not going against them and suggesting, I don't think that formation really worked today. I think we should change that next time. I've won the Champions League. You know, I've won La Liga titles. I've won, I'm just riffing kind of with whatever manager United brought in. I've performed at multiple top-level clubs. I know what I'm doing. And you need someone to back that and support that. With Rúben Amorim, because, let's be honest, he was massively failing, and people won't like to hear that. His win record was appalling. His win percentage was really bad, and the performances were quite drab most of the time. People can say we're improving this year. We came 15th last year. I mean, come on, we're Manchester United Football Club. So we didn't really have... When Jason Wilcox comes and says, I think you should change your formation and we're changing our plans, I can understand the frustration, absolutely. Well, you sold me this dream and you were on board with it and you signed me on for my contract, and now midway through the project you're trying to change it. I can understand his frustration, but he couldn't just turn around to them and say, but look what I've done. Look at this. Like, look at the evidence, because he didn't really have any apart from Sporting Lisbon, which, okay, yeah, was a great success, but it doesn't hold the same weight as a top level manager that has gone and won stuff on the biggest stages. And you might think that's right, you might think that's wrong, but that is why Manchester United need a top manager that nobody can really argue with. And you need to get the right one for sure. But if you do get that manager, the structure behind the scenes has to be evaluated, because you cannot have Jason Wilcox, for example, talking to a Luis Enrique, let's say, even though it's not going to be him. I wish, in my wildest dreams. You cannot have him saying, well, I think you should be doing this differently this week. And I know I'm a director of football, but, you know, I find it hard not to interfere, so I think we should be doing this, because that just won't work. You've got to change the structure if you are going to go for that top-level manager, and that's what United needs to figure out in the summer, is how that structure is going to work. And I think there will absolutely be multiple positions behind the scenes under scrutiny, and so there should be. If your model and business is failing and not producing the results that or the targets that you've laid out, in any workplace, there's going to be an evaluation of each position and how it's functioning. That's just life, and it shouldn't just keep going on and think, oh, well, hopefully we'll get there in the end. No, you do have to evaluate it. We're talking about one of the biggest football clubs in the world. Irish Whiskey said, people forget we need a squad, not just one or two. That's true, but how I look at it is, I don't necessarily think we should be going out there buying squad players. I get some clubs do that who are at the top level. For example, Arsenal did that a little bit this summer. They went and got Norgard from Brentford, and it's a good squad addition, and they have a squad for sure. Eze's turned into a squad player for them, and I'd never thought I'd see the day. I think Eze's ridiculously talented, and he's not really getting much game time at Arsenal. But what I would be doing, this is how I would be doing it, I'd be going buying players for my starting 11, and then the current starters drop down into the squad players. Do you know what I mean? You want to better your starting 11 first and foremost, because Man United's starting 11 is not good enough. It's not good enough. So you go and buy a left back and then the current left back goes to the bench, and you know you've got a better left back then. Now Malassia's not on the bench. Do you know what I'm saying? And then you say if you go and buy an Anderson, Casemiro's not starting. So Casemiro then becomes a bench player. I don't know if he'll go or what. And, you know, it kind of falls like that. You know, if you go and buy like a top level striker, there's serious competition there for Sesko, and he's not having the burden of having to start every week up front for United, and he can be nurtured and adapted into this team and not have as much pressure on him. So for me, you go and buy starting 11 players, and then the current starting 11 turn into squad players a little bit. That's how I'd be working it. Kill Robinson said it on a show yesterday, if United fail to get Champions League, I think INEOS is out in the summer, then give Tuchel all the power. I just want to put a poll in the community chat, and the poll is Tuchel, yes or no, in the summer. Because there's a lot of different opinions on this, and I'm not absolutely sold on Tuchel, to be honest with you. And the reason I have question marks about Tuchel is I've just never been, and I've not really got so many points to go and back it up. I've just never been absolutely sold on him. I think he's better than what we've had, and I think he would have short-term success. And maybe that's what United need. Like I said, we need to stop looking at 10-year projects, because we just need someone who can get us back up there quickly. But I wasn't overjoyed by the football he played at Chelsea. He's fallen out with multiple boards and ownerships, which people say we need at Manchester United, but there's a level to it. I don't know. I'm just not absolutely overjoyed by Thomas Tuchel, and I can't really put my finger on it. I think he has been a little bit overrated in the past. I'm going to be so honest. But, you know, he did win Chelsea. He did win Chelsea a Champions League, which, you know, was a phenomenal result. But I don't know. I'm not absolutely sold on him. He doesn't massively excite me. But let's see how he does with England. And another thing, actually, that was a big thing that I had written down, actually, is if you go for a manager after the World Cup, and I'm not completely against that, by the way, but if you do have to think about the fact that, depending on where their country gets in the competition, you're trying to do summer recruitment. You're trying to lure in Elliot Anderson. You know, you're trying to lure in, you know, potential other players in the summer. To be fair, they'll be at the World Cup as well. So it's whether you do it before or after the World Cup. So the transfer window is going to be all over the place. But you're trying to get your transfer business aligned, sorted, and a plan together. And you might not even have the manager in place until mid-July, end of July. That massively scuppers your transfer plans, and it delays them as well. And how many times do we start the season saying United are late, we've not prepared properly, you know, we've not had a full pre-season with our transfers, with our manager. So that's the difficult thing as well about getting a manager after the World Cup, is it really does give you a very short turnaround time to get transfers sorted, to speak to your manager about your plans. Unless, of course, you start having meetings with, if it's Tuchel, you start having meetings with Tuchel before the World Cup, but then you would think that Tuchel doesn't want to think about Manchester United when he's trying to win a World Cup, and that's what he's employed to do. You know, you would think it would be a conflict of interest. You'd think he'd just want full focus on the World Cup. So it's a very, very sticky situation when you're looking at World Cup managers in the summer as well. Tuchel going Madrid, says TB0. I've heard that Klopp might be looking at the Madrid job. I mean, I've seen that out there. That'd be very, very interesting for sure. Anyway, this is what Gary Neville had to say. I wanted to bring this in as well. He said on his Stick to Football podcast, he said that Manchester United have tried every possible approach when appointing managers in recent years. He said, and he listed the criteria of what Manchester United should be judging candidates on. He questioned who can handle the media, manage the dressing room, deal with the ownership pressure, play an attractive style of football, and bring Champions League and big game experience. And he named 3 standout candidates, and the ones he named for his preference were Thomas Tuchel, Carlo Ancelotti, and Maurizio Pochettino, all of whom could be available after the World Cup. He also mentioned Eddie Howe, citing his trophy win, top 4 finish, and experience at a major club in Newcastle. Neville stressed that to make United attractive again in the transfer market, they need a manager with stature. He argued that Tuchel and Ancelotti bring seriousness and authority, while appointing a younger manager could lead to United missing out on top players. I think that's an interesting point. You know, I heard Goldberg speaking about this on the morning show, saying he doesn't understand how we convince Elliot Anderson to come over the likes of Man City. I mean, Semenyo picked Man City over United, and the fact we're getting into a period of time now where it could be successive players choosing Manchester City over Manchester United knocks me sideways. Because although, yes, City have been more successful than Manchester United in recent years, you always felt as if Manchester United had that pull. We've got history, we've got a huge fan base. You have the opportunity to bring Manchester United back to the top, and that's always been a pulling power for us. But because we've been poor for so long and it keeps getting worse, players will be put off. Players' careers it's become a graveyard for players' careers, Manchester United. We have signed some good players in the past, but we've not been able to get the best out of them players. We've also signed poorly as well. Yes, of course we have. And it never feels like we have a direct pathway for elite success at this moment in time. So I understand that point. It's very, very difficult to compete with City right now, even though we have much better history, we're a bigger club, and, success at Manchester United would just be on a different scale. City do everything they can to win. They've got trophies behind them in recent years. They've got one of the best managers in the world, if not the best manager in the world. They have a clear plan, clear direction. They have a selling point. They can give you more money than we can now, probably, which is, crazy to kind of talk about. So how do you pull in these players? Well, if you've got a project in the summer with a huge name that's highly respected in world football, that can give you more pulling power. We've spoken about this often. If you're a player and you have Carlo Ancelotti or Luis Enrique talking to you about a project at Manchester United, and now, Manchester United decided to stop messing about now, I'm here. I've won this, I've won that, and this is the plan I have for you in my team to get Manchester United back to the top. That's a much more attractive proposition than a manager that doesn't really have much credibility yet in the game. So I get that point about getting a manager that can convince players to come and convince them to get onto their project. But, all the managers listed, it's after the World Cup, and like I said, it does throw a spanner in the works getting a manager in after the World Cup when it comes to transfer business. But a lot of the elite players that we will want will be at the World Cup. Elliot Anderson will be at the World Cup. Other players that we want will be at the World Cup, because the players that we want to go for, the top level players, will be playing for their country. So it's an interesting one. Pochettino's a no for me. I've just always been put off by that name and that appointment. Carlo Ancelotti, I would have at United. People will disagree with that. I'd have Carlo Ancelotti. I don't think he could be bothered with the job, to be honest. After everything he's done in world football and him taking the Brazil job, I don't know if he'd want to come and take on the mammoth job that is Manchester United. But he would absolutely demand complete respect. I would love Carlo Ancelotti at Manchester United. And people think we need like a 10-year project. We don't. If you have Carlo Ancelotti in for 2 or 3 years and he can get you back into Champions League football and on the right track, you can then follow up with another manager when he leaves that can take over his progress. So I'd welcome Ancelotti. Tuchel, like I said, I think he is slightly overrated and I'm not absolutely sold on him. Tuchel won't be an absolute no for me. It won't be an absolute no. I'd definitely be open to it, and I think there's pros to it as well. I think he's a winner. I think he's demanding. I think he demands authority and he ticks a lot of boxes for Manchester United. I'm just not 1,000,000% sold on him. Pochettino would be a no for me. I just can't get on board with that. And Carlo Ancelotti would be a yes. But there's so many other managers out there that I really like as well, to be honest with you. But there's cons to everyone. There is pros and cons to everyone. But get in the comments down below what you're thinking. Tuchel in the summer, yes or no? I'm just kind of seeing what you guys are saying. Oh, interesting. So 53% of you say yes and 47% of you would say no on that one. So I thought it'd be more swaying in the no direction for Tuchel, but a lot of people are on board with that. I know Rashford will probably leave the club and go to Barcelona, but Tuchel is a big Rashford fan. Got to remember that, a big Rashford fan. Has Eddie Howe proven himself as a top manager? I've always liked Eddie Howe, and I think Eddie Howe would have been better than Amorim. That might be unpopular, but I think he would have been. I think Eddie Howe is a good manager, and he's done well at Newcastle. Do I think he's a United-level manager right now, and would he be my first choice? No. Would he be better than what we've had? Yes. Would he be my first choice? No. But I do think there is a very good manager inside Eddie Howe. However, he wouldn't be the top of my list. Like I said, for me, although Eddie Howe has won things and he's done good stuff with Newcastle and he's got a good track record and a good CV and I like his style of football, the thing is about Eddie Howe is he plays attractive football. Like Newcastle play attractive football. It's good to watch. However, I will stand on this right now. I want a manager coming in the summer who is proven elite manager. Demands respect from the dressing room, which a manager should always come in with respect. He's your manager. But I want like elite level. I'm talking Luis Enrique, I'm talking Carlo Ancelotti, I'm talking Conte, I'm talking that calibre of manager. That's what I think Manchester United are absolutely crying out for. And that's what I think we have to go and get. But for that to happen, you've got to change the structure behind the scenes. You cannot get that style of manager and have the head coach position that we've currently got going on. If Manchester United want to get serious and this ownership want to get serious, they need to have a long, hard discussion about the way that they've been doing things. They need to come to an agreement to change what's going on behind the scenes come the summer. And they need to announce a serious top-level manager saying our new manager is, not this our new head coach is, our new manager is, and start a complete new leaf and get serious. That's what I'd be doing, and that's what I'd be taking a look at if I was Manchester United behind the scenes. Unai Emery, I'd take Unai Emery at United. You know, there's been conversations about, what about Arsenal, what about PSG, can he do it at a big club? I'd take Unai Emery. Again, I'm not saying it would be 100% work, but I'd take him. I think what he's done at Aston Villa, you can't really ignore it. I don't think we'll go for him, though. I don't think we'll go for him. Kill Robinson says, Beth, whenever I ever let you down, Tuchel, thumbs up. Do you know what? Tuchel isn't a complete no. He's just not someone I'd get hugely excited about. But if he came in, I'd welcome him and I'd back him and I'd hope he did fantastically well. And he's definitely got a good CV to back it up. Ian Tracy says, I don't see Tuchel as a project manager at PSG, Bayern and Chelsea. He went in expecting to challenge for and to win the big trophy straight away. That's what I mean. We're not at that point to win trophies straight away. If he could get us to do so, though, could you imagine? Rob WS says, Beth, I think that Carrick's attacking style will bring out the best of most players and will put them in positions that really suit them. Ahmad and Mbumo time. Ahmad and Mbumo time. It's coming, I'm telling you. Yeah, if Tuchel came in as well, you'd have to spend so much money to get on the wavelength that he'd be on straight away. Because like that super chat says, you know, Ian Tracy, he needs to win trophies straight away, and that squad isn't in the right shape for a miracle worker to do that right now. So you'd need to spend big money. Kill Robinson says, said it on a show yesterday, if United fail to get Champions League, I've done that one. And Football Analyst says, my personal dream manager is Claudio Ranieri. Oh, Ranieri, remember him in the Premier League? No. But did a good job with Leicester. Brian, she says, exceptional stuff as always, Beth. Love your work. Oh, really appreciate that. Lovely, lovely super chat. Thank you very much. Smash a like on the video. Just some quick things to round us off. I mean, first and foremost, I need to tell you that Bundesliga Fridays are back. This week it's Werder Bremen versus Eintracht Frankfurt. Not just a watch along, you see the game on screen as Goldbridge is watching it. You get to see the game, you get to scout players, and he'll be giving his commentary there. And it will be tomorrow on That's Football, so stay tuned for that. And then on Saturday, of course, it is the big one. 12:30 kickoff, United Stands, got all your coverage sorted. We have Countdown to Kickoff live, 10:30 a.m. in the morning from the studio for the Manchester derby, and then the watch along will be live with Mark from 12, and all the fans forum final score after that. You've got to be here. Derby day. Well, how are we feeling about that? I've not even spoken about the derby. I'm running out of time. Not even spoken about the derby. It's going to be a huge game for Michael Carrick and a really big one for him to come into. And of course, you have a watch along Nottingham Forest versus Arsenal 5:30 kickoff on Saturday as well. So go over to That's Football for your Bundesliga and for your Premier League games starting from Friday, and then the United Stand for Derby Day all day. On the United Stand, we'll have derby coverage and loads of good stuff, loads of good guests. So make sure you stay tuned for that. So last little bits that I wanted to bring into the show before I wrap up is Toby Collier nearing a return, and a loan could be likely for him. Toby Collier is closing in on a return from a calf injury, but his future for the second half of the season remains uncertain. With changes expected in midfield, there is a possibility that Michael Carrick could keep Collier involved. However, the preference is for Collier to leave on loan in January to gain regular game time, with the expectation being a temporary move. So Collier, Carrick yet to make a decision on whether he's going to bring him in. If not, he could go on loan. And then also a little bit about Sergeant Ratcliffe. So he's reduced his asking price for OGC Nice after initially valuing the club at 173 million. Reports suggest potential buyers were unwilling to meet that valuation, forcing a significant reduction in price. I don't know. He's definitely, wanting to sell Nice. That's for certain. He wants some money to be able to invest into his other projects for sure. But it's not great that he's had to reduce the price, is it? Let's just see how that plays out, because if OG Nice sells, that could give more money into Manchester United. But I don't know. It's one of them where you just have to wait and see. Nothing's set in stone right now, but it's not the biggest. It's not the greatest look to be reducing prices, is it? But let's see how it pans out. If it means more investment into Manchester United quickly, then I'd snap my hand off. But there's so many other things that INEOS have their fingers in a lot of pies that need money as well. Iro says, we had 2 best-in-class managers, proven. We tried this before with the same owners, 2014 vibes, scary thought. But Mourinho won us a Europa League. He won us trophies and he got us second as well. Mourinho did a very good job. If Mourinho did now what he did then, we'd all be absolutely over the moon. The standards have just dropped off a cliff. Absolutely dropped off a cliff. But thank you very much for all your super chats. Thank you everyone for getting all of your opinions in. Alan Kane says, Poch for me. Gravy on everything says, Emery is really impressive, but something about his personality makes me cringe. Go and get Luis Enrique. Don't rate Thomas Tuchel. There's so many different responses, and that just shows there's no clear front runner. I think for United, the clear front runner is Tuchel. I think Tuchel will be in the mix. I think Nagelsmann will be in the mix because of the Vivell link, and I think De Zerbi has always been of interest to INEOS. So watch them 3 names. Pochettino is another one that's on the radar for sure. But as we move closer into, because INEOS are going to have to start talking about this. Even though Carrick's in charge, you've got to plan ahead. There will be news coming out about it, and I think it's something we need to take really seriously and discuss over the coming months. But thank you very much, everyone, for watching. I hope you have a lovely Thursday. Tomorrow, the press conference will be live on the United stand, so stay tuned for that when we have an update of when it'll be. Carrick's first press conference. Very, very excited. Have a lovely, lovely day, and I will see you on the next one.